And now we're going to move on to the fourth and final panel of the day, where we're going to talk about Web3 in the creator economy and non-fungible tokens, or NFTs. So I'm going to turn it over to the moderator, Jeff Bandman from GBBC, and thanks to everybody for participating.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. I think Sumaran, you have your camera on. That's great. I think David and Shamir, please turn your cameras on as well when you have a moment, so the audience can have the pleasure of seeing you. And I think Justin, I know, is I think he's emailed me that he's in the waiting room trying to get in. So if the organizers could help Justin with that, that would be great. I'm the mere moderator here, and I don't control these parts of this, what is still a centralized technology. So today this has been a great day, and hopefully this panel can continue in the spirit of this. Our panel is focused on Web3 and their creator economy, non-fungible tokens. Obviously, we can't talk about those things without also discussing the metaverse, and I will ask my talented panelists in just a moment to introduce themselves, and then we'll jump into some of these definitions of what do we mean by Web3, what do we mean by the metaverse. So the panel description, I think, is kind of interesting and contains an assumption that I think is worth unpacking and discussing a little bit. So it talks about how the internet evolved from Web 1 to Web 2 to Web 3 with themes of digitization. I think there are many other themes as well. But then it's been suggested that, as one analyst put it, creators are no longer just the products, they are the new economies. On our panel, we'll explore how the creator economy of Web 3 will bypass existing platforms in favor of decentralized ones. So I think I would posit that one, I think interesting and very important, outcome, would be if Web3 is able to deliver on this type of creator economy, where both the, producers and creators, are able to participate in the economics and governance, and the participants and systems are able to do so. But, in my, I think the question needs to be asked, is it by any means a foregone conclusion that Web3 will go in this direction? Or, will Web 2 fight back, and will, kind of some of the business models and economic organizations and some of the vast resources and economic incentives of Web 2 be brought to bear to create a Web 3 that looks a lot like Web 2? So, for those of you in the audience, don't worry, my colleagues will, and I will help unpack all those terms for you, and we'll be able to discuss those. I'll introduce myself briefly, and then ask the panelists to introduce themselves as well, and then we'll jump into some of the discussion topics. So I'm Jeff Bandman. I'm a board member of GBBC Digital Finance, and one of the founders of kind of the GDF, Global Digital Finance. I'm a principal of Bandman Advisors, which provides which works with both businesses and regulators. I've actually been doing a lot of work on connection with promotion of the open metaverse with a pseudonymous advocate of the open metaverse called Punk 6529, which launched an open metaverse initiative called OM that some of you may have seen. And with that, I'll ask my panelists to introduce themselves, starting with Sum, and please say a little bit about yourself, your role, and then what your company is doing in Web3, NFTs, and Metaverse. We'll start with Sumaran, and then David and Shamir.
Thanks, Jeff, and hello to everyone. I'm Sumiran, and I know on 2 LinkedIn posts I had 2 different roles mentioned, so I'll explain that. I'll elaborate on that. I am head of node operator ecosystem at Indicio, and I'm also the founder of a nonprofit Bridge-Lok Kala Foundation. The mission of this foundation is to promote art, or a prehistoric art, which is on the verge of being extinct. And as a part of this foundation, what we have done, and we are the first nonprofit in India who have combined the technology with the art. We created NFTs so that we can promote this art at an international level by selling NFTs and increasing the popularity so that the next gen can actually start learning this art rather than, we losing this art forever. So that's what we do at our, and this is one of the social causes of, the technology that we can talk about later in the discussion.
I'll just roll right through. Thanks, Jeff and Sumran. Nice to see you. And Shamir. My name's Dave Treat. I work for Accenture. I founded our blockchain business back at the end of 2015. A couple years later, rolled in our extended reality business along with quantum computing and a few other innovative spaces. But for this conversation, I've been managing our blockchain and XR businesses side by side, and more over the past 18 months or 2 years. It's been obvious as to how the two of them actually really combine. And so as of 4 months ago, I've parlayed that now into, I run Accenture's Metaverse business globally. And we're calling it the Metaverse Continuum Business Group. And I'll come back to the word continuum, I think, in this conversation later on. I do it with a partner of mine, a guy named Mark Curtis from our Accenture Song practice, where we're taking deep creative, deep industry, and deep tech all together to help our clients in this metaverse innovation wave. Oh, Jeff, you're on mute.
Indeed, I am. Shamir, and I'm pleased Justin has joined us now. Welcome, Justin. We're just going through introductions, and you'll be up next after Shamir.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, so Shamir Ozeri, I'm based out of Israel. I am head of Web3 at the Algorand Foundation. Algorand, to those of you who might not know, is a layer 1 pure proof of stake protocol, the brainchild of an Turing award-winning professor, Silvio Micali. It started as a research paper, it became a product. Algorand's been up for, I believe, over 3 years now, and it's really a blockchain that's built to scale. So it's fast, it's scalable, it's secure, it's cheap, and very, very crucially, it's carbon negative. So we kind of view it as this foundational technology upon which the Web3 infrastructure of the future will be built, and again, scalable to billions of users. A little bit about myself: I'm a kind of a lifelong marketer, growth person. I taught marketing at University of Michigan and Northeastern more recently. I got into Bitcoin pretty early, relatively speaking, but then really kind of got that aha moment when I learned about Ethereum and smart contracts and the potential that opens. Just so blockchain, not necessarily just Bitcoin. My head basically exploded back in 2017 when I learned about CryptoPunks. You mentioned punks. So went to a meetup, someone got on the stage and started talking about these JPEGs that people are selling for $50. And I just had to understand why anyone would do that. And I just say that the rest is history. I've kind of been in the space ever since. I joined Algorand, by the way, Algorand Inc. on the marketing side of thing about 2.5 years ago, and recently shifted over to the Algorand Foundation as head of Web3.
That's great. Thanks. It definitely some very OG in the punks NFT world. And Justin.
Hi. Yeah, Justin Bannon. I'm co-founder of Boson Protocol. So Boson really kind of solves the problem of enabling commerce without intermediaries. So you can think of this as like kind of Uniswap for e-commerce. And so one really kind of pertinent use case is plugging into the metaverse and enabling like the sale of physical items as NFTs directly from the metaverse. So we use a kind of combination of smart contracts and game theory to kind of give buyers this assurance that if they buy one of these NFTs, they're redeemable. Either they get the physical item or they get their money back, and they don't need to rely on a sort of a trusted intermediary or seller. And we got some pretty cool use cases, such as powering metaverse commerce and sort of immersive commerce within the metaverse, and also Web3. And we're about to launch V2 of the protocol in September. I've had like World Economic Forum Tech Pioneer status for that. and we'll be announcing some amazing partners over the coming several weeks.
Well, that's great. Congratulations on that. Yeah, and Justin and I had the opportunity to discuss some of this in a panel at the World Economic Forum couple months back. So congrats on all the progress. Great. So let's jump in. As you know, our audience can tell, we're in for a treat today. So we'll go back to Shamir. Maybe we'll start with some kind of foundational definition questions here, just to level set, as it were. So maybe Shamir, I'll ask you to help start us, since we're in a kind of Web3 day. How would you define the difference between Web 2 and Web 3?
Yeah, so Web 2 was actually, when you think of it, kind of it's never a 0 to 1, right? Like it's always a spectrum. It's always something that you add different elements, and suddenly you have this culmination of all the different elements. And I think what Web 2 did really, really well was basically combine all of these different technologies, whether it's e-commerce, well, just fast internet, we'll start with that, and e-commerce and mobile phones and, and security layers and social media, of course. And it really created this world, this universe on the internet where and I like to borrow this, by the way, this isn't my idea, Chris Dixon of A16Z, I really like his definition of this, right? So if Web 1 was just this read-only static web, Web 2 was suddenly this read and write web. It's this internet that we live in today where essentially everyone is their own publisher, right? We have a megaphone, and whether it's through Twitter or Facebook or TikTok, we have the capability to reach millions, hundreds of millions of users with our message. So it's read and write. It's very interactive. That being said, as we know, we don't own our content, right? So if I publish something on Facebook, if I publish something on TikTok, not only do I not own that content, right, but they are going to monetize that content. Essentially, the platform that I'm using is going to monetize that content, giving me probably a very small fraction of what it is that they're essentially earning. And then, furthermore, if they don't like what I'm saying, they might just ban me, right? So like go to early COVID days. If someone would go on Twitter and say, hey, there's this idea that, COVID started a lab leak, not getting political here, right? I'm just saying at a certain point in time, that was a very, very controversial issue, and one that would probably be enough to ban someone from the website, right? And then you have these questions of, but who should actually decide these kinds of things? So to kind of bring it home, right? Web 3 is this web where we read, we write, and we own. We own the content that we produce, and we're able to monetize that content. And we're able to if we're monetizing it on, for example, a certain network, we have this capability to actually be a part of the ownership of that network. So it's I'd kind of argue it's a much more pluralistic, flat, if you will, web that kind of gets it back to the basics, right? Because Web 1 was very decentralized, but very limited. And now we're kind of going back to that decentralization where consumers and creators and brands, by the way, are empowered. That's
great. That's very, very comprehensive. And I think, having the examples around kind of censorship and control, I mean, that is certainly, an important element, whatever your perspective on whether those ideas, should or should not be articulated. The question is who should be making those questions, who should be making those decisions, and should they be, a bunch of, executives in California, or, who should they be?
I think just Jeff, if you don't mind, I'd love to just pick up on just to extend. I agree with everything Shamir said. I think extending that notion though of that tokenized object, just to put it in end user and experience based, just adding a little bit of terms to that, and especially because of the impact it will have on business models and social models and the like. It's really helpful for us in our work with our clients to really talk about the notion of it's the tokenization of identity, money, and objects, and the interplay between one's tokenized identity credentials, tokenized money, whether it's a cryptocurrency, stablecoin, or central bank digital currency, and then objects, whether they're non-fungible tokens or fungible tokens, and the wider construct of tokenization. And so from that end user perspective, our ability as individuals to be able to bring with us in our digital world, our tokenized identity, money, and objects really then drives exactly what Shamir was describing of a fundamental challenge to today's version of the digital world, where we don't own our data, we lose it all the time, it's sold and resold, and that lack of control and self-agency. So I always find it helpful though to make sure people are thinking the combo of identity, money, and objects.
Yeah, that's a very, very helpful observation. And I think you're right. Like people, will say sort of that, kind of Bitcoin or phase one of crypto was, kind of the internet of value focusing on money. And then NFTs are the next stage where you can sort of translate that, the double spending problem and provable ownership or identity to, provable uniqueness of objects. But you're right, that is in combination with digital identities that also exist in these digital spaces. So I think that takes us to another definition to help our audience in making sense of this. And I'm going to turn to Justin first, and then David. How would you define the so-called metaverse?
I don't think there's one answer to that. I think there are competing definitions. One of them, I mean, going back to the previous kind of question, the sort of Web 2, Web 3, I mean, my view is like Web 2 is kind of like broken by design. It's designed to lock in people as products and extract maximum value from them. And so you've got two versions of the metaverse. One is projecting that model forward into 3D, and I think that's a pretty scary and dystopian vision if we have the degree of extraction, exploitation, and lock-in that we have with social media platforms, such as Facebook. If we have, we're creating a digital reality that we're going to kind of is immersive, and we're going to spend a lot of our time within a proprietary reality. I think that's really scary. So that's not the definition that I would choose. I mean, but there is an alternate definition, and that alternative is that this is a world that people are co-creating using tools that protect data sovereignty, that mean, and Boson's role in that means that if you want to buy and sell stuff in the metaverse, you don't need to pay a 47% sort of, surcharge. You can use a minimally extractive protocol, have all the trust guarantees of an intermediary, and not have those sort of fees. So for me, the metaverse is this shared virtual reality that we're building, and also ensuring that we have better protections and better rights than we do within Web 2.
Yeah, if I build, I again agree with Justin that if I build on where you took us, Justin, I would maybe again talking about it from an end user perspective, we experience Web 2 in a single player mode, and I'm kind of using a gaming reference on purpose here. It's a single player mode where we log on, we open up our laptop or tablet or phone, and something is served up to us from source code, where, as Justin said and Shamir referenced, right, we onboarded ourselves to a retail website or to a particular service or authority. We gave away our data. We're under the control of what they offer up to us, and AI and machine learning runs in the background to take all of that harvested data that we've now given away and then try to guess at what we want, right? But it's a single player mode. It's served up from source code individually for us. And what we're moving to is now, with the combination of technologies and this continuum of technologies, that the ability to have persistent places that we can bring our identity and money and objects to that place. And fundamentally, our digital world is gonna feel and act very differently. As Justin said, it's deeply collaborative now. The first question that you ask in your mind, implicitly or explicitly, when you go to a metaverse place, is much more similar as to when you go to a physical world place. If I walk into the lobby of a building, a restaurant, or a conference room, typically my first thought is, who else is here? who can I talk with? Who can I collaborate with? It is an implicitly collaborative environment. And so through the use of extended reality and this blockchain-based construct, for me to be able to, to self-manage and bring myself to this place with my identity, money, and objects, and ask who else is here with whom I can collaborate, whether that's a social, a commerce, or other, or political, or whatever kind of collaboration. That's now a fundamentally different kind of digital world that is emerging and wildly powerful and challenging all of those notions of the roles that intermediaries play and why. And so so that formation of these persistent places where we can collaborate with others, whether it's in 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions, and be able to bring our, have that agency and control over our identity, money, and objects, is wildly different than if you had any of those thoughts. If you logged onto a website today and said, who else is here? I would immediately, contemplate hiring you into my security practice. But, otherwise that would be it would be an unusual thought.
David, could you explain that you sort of alluded to earlier, the continuum element of this?
Yeah, so we're doing, we're arguably running the world's largest enterprise metaverse set of places right now. We in response to COVID, we hired 150,000 people during the COVID period that never sat face to face with another Accenture person or went to an Accenture office. And that was deeply challenging for onboarding and culture building and community and training. And so we bought 60,000 headsets. We built a set of metaverse places to facilitate that community and convening and training and culture building and collaboration. We actually took 150,000 people through that process, because we made sure, we knew that we couldn't get headsets to everyone. We're a company of 700,000 people plus now. And so we started to really understand through those experiences, it really is a continuum. It's a continuum from the physical world to the augmented world to the virtual world. It's a continuum from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions and back, and as much seamlessly as possible. It's a continuum from consumer peer-to-peer all the way through enterprise, as per the example I just gave, where we've been able to apply it for a meaningful impact on our employees. It's going to fundamentally change the nature of the products that are made. It changes supply chains, introduces digital supply chains for digitally native or digitally augmented goods. And so this pervasive impact cutting across everything from individuals, peer-to-peer, social, all the way through large scale enterprise, and everything in between. We're putting a lot of weight on the word continuum because of all of those dimensions, and also because we find it I'm finding it unhelpful to get into the metaverse, not metaverse debate. That really this is about taking as a maximum number of ingredients, and how do you put them together to create deeper and more rich and more sustainable and valuable and inclusive digital experience.
Yeah. That's great. That's amazing kind of experimentation to have had. And just one thing to explain or unpack for our audience. Justin alluded to 47% royalties. So I would say most people, if you're if you're watching live or a recording of this, then you probably have a device on which you pay 30% royalties. Or the app operators, who use either the iOS or Android system are paying 30% of royalties to, Apple or Google, essentially. And, when at the outset of, when people were designing Web 2, or people were, mobile phones were becoming more popular, if you'd said, well, our entire economy, the digital economy, 30% of the the economics that will go to 2 companies, you probably would have been surprised to hear it, but that's the world we live in, for better or worse. So Meta, formerly Facebook, has proposed or indicated that it plans to charge 47% of revenues on for users of Meta. So that's the number. That's where the number is that Justin alluded to, and whether they articulated that number to be a little bit shocking, or they're just telling us what their plans are. remains to be seen, but that certainly is an attention grabbing number that, so, if one compares a creator economy, like where they get 53% or has access to the 100%, that's a pretty stark economic difference. So that's just the underpinning of the number that Justin was alluding to. So I think we'll turn, very, very briefly to Shamir, since it was, partially promised in the panel description to just briefly describe what an NFT is. I think that David has largely defined it, but Shamir, if you have anything to add to that, and then we'll turn to Sumaran, who's been very patiently waiting to learn her perspectives on where we are in terms of adoption, what she's seen in terms of the promising signs and what some of the obstacles or barriers are that she and her colleagues have experienced.
Yeah, so on the NFT side, I don't want to beat a dead horse. I feel like we have described it. I maybe just to kind of start, blank slate. The idea of fungible is basically just means interchangeable, right? So what we're talking about is something that is not interchangeable, like Bitcoin or any common cryptocurrency is, or any currency for that matter, right? A dollar is a dollar is a dollar. They're fungible. An NFT is not fungible in that it is a unique asset or a unique ID that typically lives on a blockchain or some kind of DLT, and it represents some kind of unit, some kind of, again, unique asset of value. I'll leave it at that and hand it off to Samiran.
Thanks, Shamir. My perspective would be a little different from all the technical jargons that all of you are using. So let me first share an experience before I actually tell you the barriers to adoption. So as I mentioned in my introduction that, we launched our nonprofit just to promote this art. So I was very, pepped up, like, hey, we got this. And we had these NFTs created, and I was motivating and asking my friends and family member, go ahead and buy this NFT and all. Now, the happiness level on day one was like this. And by the time that, I went through this whole process, my happiness quotient or my satisfaction quotient was just like, it went down. The prime reason when I first called my first family member or a friend, and I said, can you buy this NFT and it would help support the art? Now, they were okay to donate the amount, but what they did not understand, like, what is NFT? And this is, I'm talking about the people who are outside the blockchain bubble or the crypto bubble or the NFT bubble. Now, I had to kind of sit down and explain in common language that, okay, what an NFT would mean to them. So finally, on my request, they actually went ahead and, bought NFTs and all. So there was this whole experience which was behind that. But then later on, they said, okay, what am I supposed to do with it? I'm like, that's your unique thing. You're supposed to hold it. Yeah, but what am I supposed to do with it? And again, after 15 days, this person calls me and says, okay, Sumiran, I have this NFT. It is there in my wallet now. What am I going to do? It's just going to sit on my phone. And I'm scratching my head. Then I had to say, your wife owns a piece of jewelry. What does she do with it? It is like sitting in your safe box or in your jewelry box. And, you only occasionally take it out and wear it and, show it off. Now, this whole process repeated with me multiple times when I was asking my friends and people in my network to buy the NFTs. And it brought me to a conclusion that I think the first barrier to adoption is lack of awareness. And it has two components. One is people don't know how to buy it. How do they work? What is a wallet? And I'm talking about the people outside the blockchain world, which constitutes the masses. It's about, I think, 85 to 90% of people that they don't know about this technology. So the first part is, of course, the lack of knowledge and awareness. The second aspect, which is more interesting, is what do they do when they own an NFT? What exactly do they like? Okay, I have this, what am I supposed to do? So that was very interesting for me to know that, they have this art, they have this picture sitting in their wallet, but they don't know what to do it. So that's the first barrier that I feel is very important, which as a community, as this, we need to resolve or take an action on. The second, which I really felt, is the end consumer experience, which David did say previously in this session. Like I myself experienced that whole thing, whichever platform you go to, right from identifying a platform, right from buying an NFT till it shows in your gallery or till it shows in your wallet, there is somewhere the whole experience is broken. The end user, as compared to what we would have for buying anything digitally or going to a physical store, that convenience, that ease is still missing for NFTs. That's the second barrier. And the third, I do feel, is the negative press. Anything gets stolen or hacked, or anything that happens to a particular platform goes up all over, and there's all over news flashes. But what about the good things that are coming out of NFTs? What about where organizations, nonprofits, companies, they are kind of, supporting some of the social causes? What about that they are empowering these creators? Where is that press? Nobody, there's no easy way to kind of publicize what good things are coming out of the technology. So of course there are more barriers, but I feel these are the top three that is kind of being obstacles to the adoption. Of course, we do have the onboarding or on-ramp cost involved, high cost involved, or there is a question of always the stability, safety, and sustainability of these NFTs. So there are many more, the list can go on, but I do feel for the masses, these are the top three areas where we should focus on.
If I can just chip in. So first of all, 100%, Samir, and I think a lot of these things that you're mentioning are really symptoms of an industry being very new, very raw, very immature, right? And just not being there, I think, in terms of the UX and the functionality and that whole kind of 0 to 1 in terms of onboarding it, and I think about this a lot. Most of the people listening in here probably are familiar with Bored Apes Yacht Club, right? Which is kind of the blue chip, that, and I guess CryptoPunks, but and to me, the Bored Apes kind of movement, let's call it, did a lot of good for the industry and kind of raising the awareness, but also, did some bad. Like there are some repercussions in that. Today, Bored Apes, or let's call it NFTs, are basically synonymous to Bored Apes and kind of these profile pictures, right? So I think in kind of back to your point, it is very, very important to educate and articulate that, no, this is actually just the beginning, right? Like profile pictures, digital art, collectibles, that's where it starts because it's easy, right? Or easier, let's put it. But we're entering a world where everything you own, digital or physical, can be tokenized. That's not to say it should be, right? But it can be. And now let's start imagining the world of opportunities that drives. So, again, we think a lot of that onboarding and maybe just to touch on some of the things you mentioned, right? So that 0 to 1, that, oh, I like that NFT. How do I get that NFT? Today is a very, very complicated endeavor. You need to know about custody and private keys, and you need to, get some balance somewhere. And it really just is very, very tricky. So the UX is broken. I do think that the next step is to kind of find these hybrid solutions. So let's call it a Web 2 experience in a Web 3 environment. And a simple example of that might be like a Top Shots, NBA Top Shots, or we had Australia's Zoo actually and you mentioned philanthropy. So this might be a good example, right? They issued 2,000 and some crocodiles, all unique, all kind of fun and playful. And they offered them to, again, they're very much Web 2 traditional audience as a means to support from a philanthropic perspective, right? To support wildlife and nature conservation. And you're kind of killing two birds in one stone, right? On one hand, you're giving people this thing that gives them identity, a sense of this is a cause that I can relate to. And that is why I'm taking that leap. On the other hand, you're onboarding them into this ecosystem in a familiar, friendly way. And what that might mean, by the way, is that initially you just buy it with a credit card. You don't have to think about crypto. You don't have to think about custody. You just buy something with a credit card, and there it is on the website. And now, if and when you feel ready to own that, and again, the way I think of it, most people will not want to have the responsibility of holding the custody for all their keys to all of their different assets. But if you are, then here's some ways to transfer it into your private wallet, right? So kind of giving people, I think, that familiarity and allowing them to really choose their journey within this ecosystem is key.
So Shamir, if I can just add to what you've said, I think the very thing that we need to start is even change the name non-fungible token. Like that's scary enough. Like we need to think about the masses where they don't understand. So I mean, we are talking about the creator economy. Let's be creative about, pointing up or coming up with some other name than non-fungible token or fungible token. So I think that is where it starts. And of course, the second thing which you said, they don't have to, own the responsibility or, of owning something or getting scared about all of this. What again, from my experience, like, if you lose a phrase in the MetaMask wallet, everything is gone. Like, that is, you have to. Now we need to move away from such kind of barriers, because I forget my bank password every month. Every month I have to reset it. So if I can forget as basic as that, I can't remember that 12-word phrase, and I have to keep it in some safe or somewhere or have multiple copies, that itself is liable for theft. So think about it. So we need to kind of ease those kind of experiences for everybody. And as I said, we need to kind of move away from the word non-fungible token. Sure.
Yeah. So again, just to reply to that, I talked to a lot of companies, let's call it doing onboarding, whether it's the fiat to crypto payments or custody solutions. And again, I think like you're right, but that's only because we're so early. And like my best guess is within a year or two, we're going to see some of these seamless solutions that are very, very familiar to people and really kind of checking that that familiarity box for them. And allowing them to enter the space. And then just the one thing that the next phase, once we make it familiar, is to reimagine what it is that NFTs can actually do. Because I would say we're still at kind of this phase where we're trying to, make a better Web 2 with these new tools that we have. But, we can't even imagine what's going to happen once everyone is in Web 3 and what opportunities might arise.
Yeah, I firmly believe, Shamir, that NFTs does have a lot of potential. Yes, we might see a fall in the buying of NFTs over last 2 months, but at least what I can see, there are more eyeballs to these platforms then. So I think it's in the phase of stabilization. And as you said, if we couple it with philanthropy and other aspects, definitely people would realize the importance of this. And I personally have, so yes.
I'm gonna add another dimension to this. I firmly believe that as this plays out, and Sumiran, I'm completely with you on we need to use much more engaging, simple language and make the products lovable. But I'm gonna violate that for one more minute. Fungible tokens, I would argue, are going to be vastly more important than non-fungible tokens. I think we are mired in even just a brand perception of a get-rich-quick scheme and all of the stuff that is is distracting from. Let me just bring a real life example that's not money based, right? If I'm a big brand, shoe, sports, whatever, or I'm a new content creator and I want everyone to show up in Metaverse places wearing my brands because that's part of the development of my product. That is implicitly a fungible token where I want to use tokenization because I want everyone to prove it's authentic and that it's real and it's authentic and it was purchased, but I can put a fixed price on it because I want to have 50 million people wear them rather than create 100 and create some sort of artificially scarce valuation model around it. And so that whole notion of the framework and the variability for what we want to use these digital objects for, whether it's a non-fungible token, a fungible token, and then let's take it a step further. How do we want to treat the IP rights that flow through that token or not? And the construct of usability and use case for them, all wildly important. And I'm just gonna shamelessly plug on behalf of the GBBC. If you're interested in the space and you want to raise it up a level beyond the scarcity valuation model of NFTs, go check out the token taxonomy framework and the tooling that steps you through the variety of choices and decisions where you can match the best construct of the token to what the end user really wants and uses, and don't get locked into. If there's one thing that we could do as a community is break is elevate the conversation above NFT to the wider potential of tokenization. I'm on that mission and failing so far.
Well, it's very, I think you've articulated it well, and the work I certainly want to second that. The work that GBBC is doing to kind of promote and bring education to this is critical, and I think that that's a kind of common theme here. I mean, for all the hype around around NFTs, it's still very, very, very early. I sort of agree that for most people today, the process of how do I receive an NFT, how do I access it, it sort of reminds me a bit of kind of Bitcoin 2012 or 2013. Like today, even if you can figure out how to get a hold of some Ethereum, you need to hook up a wallet and you connect it to a platform, and that there's just a lot of things you can do. And so we're at the very, very early phase of the the adoption cycle, because it's hard and it will get easier. And I think that what's hard for people is not just accessing them, but even even seeing them and enjoying them. Like the first wave of these NFTs that have been art NFTs, if you're just most people will view them on your phone or as a little like thumbnail on your computer. But if you make them big and you mirror them onto your TV screen, or you go into a metaverse where there's an effective display of NFTs, then you can have much more appreciation for them, and then right. I mean, the art NFTs are just the first manifestation of the much broader thing that you can tokenize anything. And I think the observation that David made, that that the world, and you might express it as the future market cap of non-fungible tokens, I think is highly likely to get on parity with and then exceed that of the of fungible tokens. We have a couple of questions from the audience, and then we'll go back to the discussion questions from the panelists. So we had one question from the audience. When you say Metaverse will have a royalty fee, does that mean that we Facebook end users will soon have to pay for it? The way I would answer that, at least, is that there will be, whether the cost is passed through, whether you pay it directly or it's borne indirectly, but that cost will be reflected somewhere. So that will be part of the economics of that, as compared to another type of platform where there's not that amount of rent or rent seeking. We have a second question. Maybe I'll throw this to the panel. Do we think that NFT's reliance on the Discord social media platform as a primary communication platforms, scare off, either limits certain communities from accessing the space, or scares off investors or consumers from NFTs? Anyone have a view on that?
Yeah, let me elevate the question up a level. Right now, in the deepest of irony for the innovation wave that we're all a part of, right? In effect, there's a whole set of walled gardens being constructed because we can't take our identity, money, and object tokens from place to place, from metaverse place to place to place. And so that fundamental notion of what foundation of portability, interoperability, open source, and open standards that can enable that self-management of those objects, to be able to, per I think how I'm interpreting the question, not get inextricably tied to to one particular underlying ledger or construct or domain. If we continue down that path, we're simply replacing one giant set of mags for the next set, in rapid fashion.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? I mean, I think that a lot to do with NFTs, it is about these, it's about access and accessible communities with our digital identities. And so I think there's really two completely opposite ways to look at this kind of Discord thing, right? In a way, like one of them is it's it's a platform that's bringing communities together around, particular NFT projects, and all you have to do is be interested in it. But, for some people, Discord is an unfamiliar channel. I know at some, regulators like, the CFTC, where I used to be an official, you can't access Discord from there. Others, I think the Bank of England have used Discord for internal training. So you have like different, probably somewhat similar to what, David talked about at the beginning about how, Accenture, used kind of metaverse and headsets to try to bring communities together through these channels. So, sounds like, a bit of a double-edged sword. I did want to turn to Justin, who's been listening patiently, kind of, with the prospect of commerce moving to these sort of more programmable areas. You talked about some of it before. How do you think this will change commerce as we know it today?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I mean, I think this is like the big transformation that's coming, and we've talked about what are NFTs, etc. I mean, NFTs are digital objects that can represent anything, and they can be programmed. So they're not dumb objects. And I think, if you look at what's happened with information, I mean, maybe it was 30, 40 years ago, if you had a question, you may have to go to your local library, look up a book, go flick through, search, everything was in silos. And over time, that information has become increasingly available for free online. Of course, there are still, a lot of silos, but increasingly. But if you look at commerce today, we're in the same sort of place that we were with kind of like libraries, or maybe even the early internet where you had these walled gardens. So there are, not all of the items that you can buy are listed online for sale. And a huge number of the ones that are listed online for sale are in these siloed databases within these extractionary walled gardens. Now imagine if all of the kind of physical objects are just, listed and searchable within a kind of common interoperable format. And, you've got this kind of notion of a decentralized market economy where you can go and buy and exchange these items without needing trusted intermediaries or trusted sellers. And you can, it's like sending an SMS or a Bitcoin, but for actual physical assets. I mean, that is a completely new sort of economic order. And that's what we're on the brink of.
Yeah. Shamir, did you want to make a comment about utility before we wrap up?
Yeah. I mean, again, we're to Justin's point, we're really pushing the envelope. We're I think we're still at the the figuring it out stage, but like at the moment, and Algorand, by the way. So if you think of, for example, different standards, there are ways to Justin's point of NFTs as smart objects. There are ways to bake in royalties. We have a standard ARC 19 on Algorand, which actually allows NFTs to evolve. And again, like this is open source software, so it doesn't grow linearly, right? It is and will keep growing exponentially. So I just want to kind of put it out there when it comes down to utility, and maybe also to Samiran's point. What you do with an NFT depends on the NFT itself. And we talked about philanthropy, right? We talked about community and tribes and identity. We talked about access. I think access, like to me as a marketer, I can tell you this whole industry is being disrupted. And again, this kind of relates to the metaverse question. To me, it makes a lot, like advertising sucks. No one likes advertising. And yet the largest companies in the world, that's their revenue model. Right. So like we are in the midst of the beginning, maybe, of a paradigm shift of how the web is monetized. And I think like we will likely be paying more for more products, but that's only to say that we are going to stop being the product. So that's a good thing. When we start thinking about micropayments, when we start thinking about experiences that NFTs and again, just Web3 tech stacks in general can unlock. To me, that's interesting, and that's where things are going.
Great. Well, we're up against it in terms of time. I'd like to ask Simran maybe to give us a couple of closing thoughts, and then we will thank the panelists. But Simran, you have the mic.
Thanks, Jeff. And for closing, I actually want to share an experience and amplify what David and Jeff, you said about GBBC. So the inspiration when, and Shamir, when you said when we couple all of these technology with social causes or philanthropy. So I want to share an experience before, we call it for the day. Actually, GBBC is not only kind of, giving way to for the tools or technology, but they are also supporting the social causes. And I can say that because the inspiration behind this foundation was none other than but Sandra. So when I went to India last year to visit my family, that's where I stumbled upon this art, which even I didn't know. And a lot of these artists lost their livelihood because of COVID, because they were not getting events or programs to perform. So I just called up Sandra and I said, can you help me? What do? We have all this technology sitting and, we are talking about it. And this is, so I still remember her statement that she said, Sumaran, you know what, let the global village help the small village of yours. And can you get these NFTs created? And that was the beginning of this journey. And that's why I just want to kind of amplify that GBBC is not only promoting the technology, but it was also helping the social causes. And we need more of these kind of positive reinforcements so that the technology can be put to good use. So that was my closing, Jeff.
Great. Well, on that extremely positive note, I'd like to thank all the panelists at Sumaran, David, Shamir, Justin. Thank you very much for your thoughts. And Joseph, turning it back over to you for closing remarks.
Great. Thanks, everybody. To our panelists and our attendees, I hope you enjoyed the Web3 seminar today. I hope you took away from it all the great promises that this suite of technologies can provide, and some of the real challenges and significant obstacles to implementing a lot of really exciting use cases. I want to wrap up with, I want to start off my closing remarks with a bunch of thank yous. I want to first to Sandra Rowe and the great folks at GBBC. Thanks for being our industry partner. We couldn't do it without you, and thanks for bringing all these great industry speakers together. To the events team here at American University, I want to thank Elizabeth Thomas and Ali Years, the unsung heroes of all these events. They keep us on the straight and narrow and make sure that Bob and I don't forget anything. And I also want to thank the audience for taking time out of your day to go ahead and spend this time with us. I want to wrap it up by saying, if you thought today's event was good, which I think it was, we're hosting an all-day in-person Web3 event on Wednesday, September 14th at the American University Washington College of Law campus in DC. Again, we'll be co-hosting this event with our great GBBC partners, and Circle, we have several folks from Circle presenting today, are going to be the key sponsor for this event. We're finalizing the details, and you should see registration and invitations via our social media and email communications sometime in mid-August. Let me wrap up by saying, Bob, do you want to add any closing remarks, or do we want to let everybody go a little bit early? Bob? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Again, thanks to everybody, and look forward to some communications with us in the next week to 2 weeks about an all-day in-person live event, Wednesday, September 14th at American University's Washington College of Law campus in DC. Thanks again, everybody. Take care.